Hello, welcome to the Wednesday Bible Study Podcast. I am later than normal today, so sorry about that. My afternoon got busier than expected, but anyway, better late than never. Um, and originally used to do these in the evening, so at any rate, this is earlier than that, although not much. We're going to, for the month of December, this podcast is going to be kind of celebrated on Christmas, New Year's. So don't have a name for it really, but the series, just Christmas and New Year's. But this particular podcast, the name is A Stable Influence, is what I'm calling it. And I'm just going to read from the Gospel of Luke, beginning in verse 2, chapter 2, beginning in verse 4. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Or as the some of the older versions say, there was no room at the inn for them. So we often think of the innkeeper at Christmas a little bit as if he's a character. He's in some Christmas cartoons. I think of the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and often you see some pictures maybe of an innkeeper. Been in a lot of Christmas pageants. But really, the truth is, there's no innkeeper mentioned in the Bible. We're just told there was no room, and the NIV says no room. There was no room in the guest house for him, in the guest room. We don't even know if the manger belonged to this whoever the innkeeper or the owner of this house that had a guest room. We can take inference that the innkeeper offered his manger, his barn, his stable, but we really don't know that. By the way, most people feel there was probably just one inn in Bethlehem, in all of Bethlehem. It was a pretty small town, much smaller than Thomasville. But often in times like this, when travelers came to town, especially in large numbers, people would rent out their rooms in their houses. And quite possible that Joseph had relatives there and was actually looking in one of their homes to stay. And it's possible that whoever this innkeeper was or whoever kind of turned them away had already given up his own bed. Some speculators, some scholars have even speculated that the common room of the inn, if you will, or the guest house, where people would have ate, would have had people sleeping on pallets in it. So imagine maybe going into the Holiday Inn and seeing people sleeping in the foyer. So, whether or not, how much of this is speculation and truth, we really don't know. Maybe, there's somebody in the janitor's closet already sleeping. So perhaps all this was going on when Joseph and Mary showed up. This census had brought this little town to having a lot more people in it, perhaps bursting. The manger, was it the manger where the sheep were? A lot of people have said that this manger, it says the manger, was actually referring to the manger where the sheep were kept who would be sacrificed on Passover. Most of the people in Bethlehem had something to do with caring for this sheep that were used in the temple sacrifices, including Passover sacrifice. That was kind of what those sheep were designated as. Not that every single sheep qualified for that, certainly not, but they were the temple sheep. And so these were temple shepherds that the angel appeared to. And the manger would probably refer to the place where the sheep that the town of Bethlehem was charged with raising this flock, where the little baby lambs that were designated for the Passover would be born. So the innkeeper, though, we think of it as his stable, and of course cows and donkeys and all that other stuff, chickens. Primarily, was probably a place where lambs were kept, because that's what Bethlehem was. It was a shepherding town. It was a sheep town, but certainly everybody had a few extra little animals around, ducks, chickens, that sort of thing. Um, so that said, he was busy. I'm sure he was busy because all these extra people were coming to town, and he was trying to make them happy and warm and fed, so they could sleep. Perhaps he was making money. They were paying him, sure, but they were working hard for their money, him and his family. But in the midst of this, there was chaos for sure going on. All these extra people in town, it was chaotic. And all that said, history was being changed right under their noses. The innkeeper and everybody in Bethlehem. History was being changed right under their noses in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the uproar, in the midst of their lives that were kind of there was no time to think about the fact that, hey, here history is being made, and something more important than has ever happened and ever will happen is happening in our little town. And God, He was going to bring stability in the midst of this chaos. He was going to be, the stable was probably made out of stone, not the wooden stables that we often see. And his stability is like a rock, right? And he was going to bring stability in the midst of chaos. So that's why I'm calling this a stable influence. On this night long ago, in the middle of chaos, God brought forth a stabling influence. That God Himself would come down and dwell with us in the middle of the chaos that we've created, and to bring His peace and His calm, His stable hand into the lives who would receive Him. I was thinking yesterday, I was helping my wife hang up some ornaments, and these were the memory ornaments that have pictures in them of our family and that sort of thing. Every time I put the ornament on the tree, it would turn around so that the back side was showing. So if there was a picture, it would turn around. And so I would try to redo it and hang it up in a different way, or on a different branch, do the same thing, turn it around. Like every time I would do it, the thing was turning around so that you couldn't see the picture or you couldn't see the words that were on it. And it was chaos, if you will. It was like my best efforts to make things orderly and nice weren't working. And that's a lot of what happens in our spiritual lives and in our lives in general. We try to make order, and we try to make sense out of things, and we try to bring stability and have a stable life. But it's hard to do on our own. It's really, honestly, not possible to do on our own. So God sent stability into the stable. And we as followers of Christ can be buttressed up by the power of Christ. Okay, we are His followers, and we have His power. 2 Samuel 22:33. God is my strong fortress, and He makes my way perfect. So in the middle of this, really, it's a demonic spirit of chaos and confusion and fear that seeks to invade this earth. In the middle of the work of the enemy, the Christian can stand on the fortress of God, in the fortress of God, and feel His power upholding us. Many years ago, Martin Luther penned a hymn that would endure centuries. We can still sing it today. And it reminds us that Jesus came, and that we no longer have to let the chaos of this world throw us around. It says, "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. Our helper He amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing." And amongst all this chaos and all the mortal craziness, okay, is what it's saying. "For still our ancient foe does seek to work us woe." Satan is probably now more than ever. This is the most dangerous spiritual time in the history of the world we live in. He is out to devour, to steal, to kill. "For still our ancient foe does seek to work us woe. His craft and power are great, and armed with cruel hate on earth is not his equal." But we think about the beginning of the him, a mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. Satan cannot penetrate it. He cannot overcome it. So the innkeeper, the people of Bethlehem, they were caught up in the chaos of the moment. But the kind of the sentimental fool I am, I like to imagine that at some point he woke up to the fact that in this stable was the most stable force in the universe. That at some point, him, his family, like the shepherds and the other people of Bethlehem, I hope that they came and they also bowed down to worship and praise the King of Kings. Proverbs 18:10 reminds us the name of the Lord is a strong tower or a fortified tower. The righteous run into it and they are safe. Whatever is going on in life, we run to the fortress and we stand in him, with him, through him. And we get so distracted by the noise of this world that we forget we have something bigger and greater than this world to run to. So I'm kind of a little bit of a Star Wars fan, especially the original series. I don't like the newer stuff that much. But there's a moment in the Star Wars where one of the guys are going to try to go and blow up the Death Star, and they're going in to shove the torpedoes, the laser torpedoes in, and they're getting fired on by the stormtroopers. And one of the guys, the pilots, he says, "Stay on target, stay on target, stay on target." I sometimes would say that to my boys as they were growing up. Most of them seem like they have some form of ADHD or they get distracted easily and trying to do a task, and I'd say, "Stay on target, stay on target." So we have to remind ourselves to stay on target when it comes to the bigger pictures of life. We're focused, on all the things that are going on, in politics and pandemics and people sick or people disappointing us, relationships broken, inflation, whatever it is that gets people worried, and elections, the possibility of war, all that stuff. I'm not saying we don't pay attention to what's going on, but we have to know that God wants us to really rely on him. Yes, we should know what to do in these times, but we also need to know that without him, no matter what we do, isn't really going to help. But with him, we can accomplish all things. We have to keep focused on the living God in our lives. In the middle of broken families and shattered dreams and fractured relationships that we might have, Jesus is our stabling influence. I think it's kind of cool that in the English language, the English-speaking people at least, our Savior was born in a stable so that our lives can be stable. We can have stability in our lives. He is that rock. He is that stabling influence. The other one, I remember, it's happened more than once, but I remember one time in our old house, I was going down the stairs. We had stairs there, and we had our little black kitty who's since gone on to, to chasing mice and the great beyond, all right? He was sitting on the stairs, and at the last minute, I saw him, and I adjusted my steps so that I wouldn't step on him and definitely go over. But I needed something to grab onto. So there was there's a railing like in most stairs, and I grabbed onto that railing, and I twisted a little bit, but I didn't go down the stairs because that railing stabled me. So God is our railing, if you will. He prevents us from falling if we will grab onto him. I hope and pray that the innkeeper, his family, the other people of Bethlehem were able to grab on. Oh, sorry. Knocked my microphone there. Grab onto that railing that God is, that can stable us in difficult times. Whether he did or not, I guess we'll know in heaven one day, but you can. I hope in the middle of whatever you're going through, you learn to lean on the everlasting arms. I'm going to read something here from C.S. Lewis. He calls it Living in the Atomic Age. In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. And this is, thinking of living in the 50s. How are we to live in an atomic age? And we could put in there today AI, artificial intelligence, or um, any other thing that we may be concerned about. I'm tempted to reply, why, as you would live in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in the Viking Age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat at night, or indeed as you were already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of a premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself has not a chance at all, but is a certainty. If we're going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. A microbe can do that. But they do not dominate our minds. What the atomic bomb has really done is to remind us forcibly of the sort of world we are living in which during the prosperous period before we were beginning to forget. And this reminder is, so far as it goes, a good thing. We have been awoke from a pretty dream, and now we begin to walk and talk about realities. It is our business to live by our own law, not by fears, to follow in private or in public life the law of love and temperance, even when they seem to be suicidal, and not the law of competition and grab, even when they seem to be necessary to our own survival. For it is part of our spiritual law never to put survival first, not even the survival of our species. We must resolutely train ourselves to feel that the survival of man on this earth, much more of our own nation or culture or class, is not worth having unless it can be held by honorable and merciful means. And then he says this is really important. Nothing is more likely to destroy a species or a nation than a determination to survive at all costs. Those who care for something else more than civilization are the only people by whom civilization is at all likely to be preserved. Those who want heaven most have served earth best. And those who love man less than God do most for man. Let the bomb find you doing well. Now, that was a novel time where the people were really concerned about the atomic bomb. It's still one of the threats that's out there for sure. But we can stay stable and strong in this life. Whatever the threats and whatever the news tells us to worry about, we have now global warming and Russia, and terrorists, and you name it. And once again, when we go to vote and set policies, we should look at some of those things. That's fine. But they should not dominate us. We are dominated by serving the Lord. We are dominated by fulfilling our purpose in this life. We should be spending most of our time, our effort, our resources, our thoughts into God, what do you want me to do? How can I spread the good news? How can I be a representative to other people of you in this world? And help me to be stable and strong through all my worries and fears and concerns, and not be so self-centered. Not be so concerned about my own survival or my own prosperity or my own success or my own protection, my own even my own family and their prosperity, but rather eternal things, eternal things that will bring stability to other people's lives as well as our own. And that is Jesus, having Jesus as the center of our life. So I hope this Christmas and going on into the new year that He is your stability. He's your stabling factor. Okay? Thanks again for tuning in. this first podcast of December. Lord willing, we'll be live streaming here Sunday morning again as we continue our Advent series on Sunday morning as well. And I just pray and trust and hope that you have a blessed Christmas focused on Him. God bless.